Okay, now that we got all the bolts in their home, it's time to go ahead and start tightening them down. So I'll just start them by hand, make sure they're threading. Then I'll probably use my drill to gently get them down, just because this takes forever. Okay, so up next we'll do the same thing with the little 10 millimeters. If of course I can find the 10 millimeter. There it is. So what I'm doing now is just going back and wiping off any excess case sealant, especially from the joints. Okay, so it's time to start torquing the bolts down. The procedure on the Yamaha here is bolts 1 through 10, which are the big crank bolts. First, they're torqued down to 15 Newton meters. Second, they're torqued down to 15 Newton meters plus 45 to 50 degrees. The tiny bolts are going to be torqued down to 12 Newton meters. Some of the mid-sized ones are going to be torqued down to 14 Newton meters. And the big ones, not the big ones, but the two crank ones back are on the output shaft, are torqued down to 24. So first we're going to tighten them all down to 15 Newton meters, starting with number 1, which is kind of the central one here. Okay, so I'm just making sure that my crank still spins. It should, yep. Okay, so step 2 is going to be 15 Newton meters again, but with 45 to 50 degrees rotation past. So let me show you this. So if you ever see on torque specs where it's got the degrees here, let's see if you can see that. There we are. So if you ever see that it has 45 degrees after the torque setting, that means you need to get to that torque and then rotate that much more. So of course 45 degrees, half a 90, so just about, well, 45 degrees. Again, we're going to do them in the same order. Okay, so we're going to start that second round of tightening on these with the degrees. So the torque's going to remain the same. The only difference is we're going to have that 45 degree once we get to the 15 Newton meters. So that's about right there. So step 1 is done. Okay, bolts 11 through 15, which are going to be this one, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Are going to be torqued to 12 Newton meters.
So next we'll go to number 16 and number 24.
So that's going to be these two bolts that are a little bit different. Of course, they're 12 millimeter, and they're also going to be torqued to 14 Newton meters.
So now we have the three bolts inside there, 17, 18, and 19.
Okay, so I went ahead and flipped this around so I can get to the back bolts a lot easier because I couldn't really see them the way it's sitting right now. So the next one, number 20, is this one right here. And this is going to continue on with the 12 Newton meters. So number 21 and 22 are actually tightened to 24 Newton meters, so it's quite a bit higher. Keep going with the small ones here. Okay, so for that one, which I got to fix, they're all torqued down and ready to go to the next step. Okay, so the two little bolts here that hold this plate on that keep the shift cam in, these need to be Loctited. So I'll go ahead and break out the Loctite stick here, which is almost gone. Do these one at a time just to keep the spring from popping off on me. Okay, these two bolts are torqued down to 10 Newton meters. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so up next is to install the shifter shaft. This one's a little bit tricky because of the spring that's got to go on this thing. It's a very strong one. So there's two little prongs here which are actually springs. They have to go over this. These go over this, and then the spring goes from here to there. So those are the hardest parts of this deal. I usually like to go ahead and put the spring on and put it around the thing there, because then you can kind of get this into place like that the wrong way. Then we'll come out with the shift shaft. There we have it. So that is the way that is installed. Next we just have to install the cover, and this is done. Okay, so first we install the little guides right there. There it is. Next is the gasket. Always use new gaskets. This one's nice and silver and shiny. It goes this way. Okay. And it just simply goes over the shaft and straight down like that into place. Next we'll put the bolts in. These are torqued down to 12 Newton meters, so I'll just go ahead and put these the ones we have. Oh, I see. So there's some shorter bolts that go on those two down there that aren't with it right now. But we'll go ahead and do these three. And of course I'll go back and check all these once I get the other two on there that are missing right now. Okay, so up next we're just gonna go ahead and get these put in. These are the bolts that I mentioned that you always have to buy new ones of. And they're also Loctited and indented. They really don't want these coming out. Well, these actually don't call for Loctite, but already got it here, might as well. these are going to be torqued down to 12 Newton meters also. Okay, the next part is a really important step. Let me bring you in close here. Okay, so if you see right here, there's actually a little notch. The reason for that is you're supposed to bend the bolt down with a punch into that little notch there. So I'll go ahead and do that now. You can see that now it's punched into this hole, so there's no way you can get it loose unless you break it. Okay, there we go. So up next, I'll just finish putting in these oil trays and a few things like that. Okay, so this little plate here is just like a oil control plate. It goes right there. It's held on by two little screws. These are going to get torqued down to 10 Newton meters. Same for these here, once we get that chain on.